Well, hi everybody, it's Lisa Tamati here. I'm pushing the limits, and today you would not believe who I've managed to track down, and he's actually sitting still for 5 minutes, but I've got Ben Warren. Ben Warren all the way from Havelock North and from Be Pure, and many of my listeners will know of Be Pure and Ben Warren and all his work. He is literally everywhere on the net that you can possibly think of, and does a huge amount of work around educating people in nutrition and supplementation, and has a number of clinicians that he works with in his business. So welcome to the show, Ben.
Thank you very much, Lisa, for having me. Appreciate it.
It's been a while since I interviewed you last. Let's start off a little bit. What are you doing at Be Pure, and what are you up to these days?
Oh, well, we're up to all sorts of fun things at the moment. We've got obviously clinical team. We've got a clinic in Auckland now. So our clinical team continues to grow. I think we're up to about 22. I think the full clinical team, which is super exciting. A lot of research. So we've got a hormone tour coming up, 25 town or city hormone tour coming up, and then we've got a lot of exciting things at the moment that I'm not allowed to talk about at the moment actually. But we've got some massive things for next year that we've been working on for a couple of years already, and that's coming out. And then actually not something I can talk about is we've got a new product coming out in a month's time, this has taken 2.5 years to bring to market, and this is a product that's going to help clear estrogen.
I want some.
So hormonal imbalance is a major problem, as you know, Lisa, for many women.
Yep.
And it's taken 2.5 years to bring this to market, but I'm stoked. I'm not even female, and I want to take it. I will take it because estrogen dominance is really affecting so many people in the modern world, and even men, even myself. And so I'm looking forward to basically it's
getting this product.
Yeah, it's got some Nuka honey in it. We use Nuka honey, and because of the benefits of Nuka, so it's a nice sweetener, natural sweetener with nice enzyme activity, and then also it's a chocolate flavour. So I'm quite looking forward to that.
When can I get some? Sign me
We're
up
about a month away. Yeah, we're about a month away. All being well, it's still being manufactured at the moment, but we're told it's about a month away, so it's exciting.
Oh, that is fabulous. Well, let's start on that subject, hormone health. We just had a bit of discussion before, and some of the listeners know my journey because I've been sharing what I've been going through with fibroids and adenomyosis, and why the hell has this happened to me, and and this is a huge problem. Hormones are the endocrine disruptors that we are constantly exposed to. Our fertility as a species is dropping 50% or something in the last 50 years. We're in a mess. What's happening, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, basically the modern world is set up against our hormones, particularly female hormones. And so when I say that, we're looking at these environmental xenoestrogens, which are mimicking estrogen and causing, really driving estrogen dominant conditions. And you can follow the research all the way through from early puberty. Puberty is occurring earlier and earlier now. 9 is considered normal now for girls to start menstruating.
That's insane.
It's nuts, I've got a 9-year-old daughter, and it's like, wow, that's just it's crazy. And then you follow it all the way through from PMS and heavy menses through to endometriosis, and then at the other end of the spectrum, you're looking at these really serious health issues like breast cancer that are again heavily linked to these molecules in the environment, these xenoestrogens. Things from PCBs, from plastic water bottles, from plastics in general, skincare products, parabens, phthalates. Unfortunately, it's ubiquitous with the modern world that these molecules are around us, and they're just wreaking absolute havoc on many people's hormones.
Yeah, in fact, in Harvard University, the research that I've been doing, they've been putting out a series of interviews and things around this being the third biggest threat to mankind. It's that big. Yeah.
It's huge.
After nuclear war and climate change, the next one is hormone disruptors. That's what Harvard's saying. So this is really, really. I know I've been on this journey with my own health problems and wondering where the hell did this come from. And I'm talking to other women in their 40s and in my age group, and every second person is having problems around endometriosis, fibroids, heavy menses, early puberty. It's a mess. And the men as well. The men are having gynecomastia and weight issues. These things are obesogens, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are. They basically cause a lot of competitive inhibition and competitive noise at the cell receptor site, which then means our other hormones that control our metabolism, like your thyroid hormones and insulin signaling, all gets kind of disrupted, which for the most part results in weight gain and fatigue and weight gain. Energy levels are decreased and weight gain, and so it's a big problem.
Vicious cycle.
It really is. It's a real problem, and in the modern world. But the good thing is that we can do things about it. We can upregulate our liver and clear these molecules, thankfully. We can reduce our exposure to them. So, reducing our exposure to plastics, being aware of, mindful of what we're putting on our skin, deodorants, things like that. And then upregulating the liver to clear them is going to be absolutely key. And the cruciferous vegetables, things like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, are going to be absolutely vital in that.
So that's, detoxification pathways. Let's talk a little bit about them then, filtering out these hormones, because a lot of this estrogen dominance means that the estrogen is being recycled into the body, isn't it? Because it's not getting out through the liver.
It's got to get out through the liver,
Yeah. And, what can we do to support our livers?
Yeah, well, the first thing is to decrease the load. So, minimize caffeine use, minimize alcohol. Both of these are very, very hard on the liver. The research shows, again, really problematic. And then we want to upregulate the liver function. So that's going to be, eating foods like green tea, having turmeric, garlic for sulfur, onions for sulfur. And then you're looking at these real unique molecules that are found in cruciferous vegetables. Got a class of isocyanates and another one called DIM, which I'm sure you've heard of, Lisa.
Yes,
and
I have.
Adrenal, which all really massively upregulate the clearance of these molecules so that they don't get recycled, so we can get them out of our bodies.
Absolutely. So this is the sort of thing that we can start to do to help ourselves in the process. What sort of things in there, so you've mentioned plastics, BPAs. What about things like tinned foods? Those plastic, you get your almond milk and stuff, and it's all in these Tetra Paks. What are they like?
You're absolutely right. It's ubiquitous with the modern world, and so even like a canned food now, tinned food, they often have plastic linings, and those plastic linings again contain BPA. Wow. And the worst thing about that is that often these canned foods are cooked in the tin, so they put them raw in the tin, put the lid on, and then they cook them.
You're
and
kidding.
so you're actually then getting the leaching under heat, because obviously under heat the plasticizers sort of like break down more, and you're getting more leaching. I was actually just 2 days ago, I was with one of the top toxicologists in Melbourne looking at his lab, and he was saying that 2,000 new chemicals every week are getting registered, new chemicals, and he was like, well, at the moment we're not even developing 20 new chemical assays a week, so let alone 2,000 chemical assays. So all these new chemicals are getting made, but nobody.
What are they doing to us?
Nobody's measuring them. He's like, nobody's actually measuring them. So it's so we got to minimize exposure. Fortunately, we're quite difficult to kill. Fortunately, so we really are. Our systems are, we got backup systems for backup systems, and our body will store a lot of toxins in body fat. But that's why then it leads for so many people who are struggling with their weight, is because their livers can't actually get rid of the toxins, and therefore they're just storing them in fat, and that's why they can't lose their body weight.
So when you see someone who's overweight, they've got a lot of estrogen is stored in the fat cells, isn't it? So they've got estrogen dominance going on.
Yeah, and it's a double whammy, because fat cells will make more estrogen as well, and so. Yeah, so invariably, if you've got excess body fat, male or female, you're going to have excess estrogen, and so that's so maintaining working hard, as some women have to maintain their weight is very important, and exercise hugely important, very, very important for the liver, for energy metabolism in the liver, and for liver function. And so it really is it's a whole diet and lifestyle picture, and then there's specific nutraceuticals that you can take to help upregulate these pathways, which is obviously what we do a lot of testing. We do a lot of we use gold standard testing, where we look at urine testing to see the whole hormonal cascade, and then we we give people certain products to upregulate the pathways to clear these metabolites or to support where needed.
Wow, I mean, it's a really complicated game, isn't it? And even for someone like you, who lives and eats and breathes this life philosophy, do you still struggle? Like personally, absolutely. I mean, I know as an athlete, I still struggle with this journey I'm on has hit me out of the blue, and I'm going, well, hey, I don't drink, and I have a little bit of coffee, but I don't do anything particularly bad. Why the hell can this happen?
Absolutely, you're absolutely right, Lisa. I still struggle. I don't drink too much. I don't 5-6 beers a year, and don't drink caffeinated coffee, and yet I still have liver load, and that's just a modern lifestyle. Like for me, I don't. My exercise is okay, but it's not as good as it could be. But I'm very busy.
Not surprised, hard to be everything.
Yeah, when you're very busy for an hour, you produce a lot of testosterone, and that testosterone, if you don't then use it for running away or building muscle, fight or flight response, your body will aromatase that testosterone into estrogen, and then you store more body fat. And so the more stressed you are, essentially for men and women, for most women too, the more stressed you are, the more estrogen you're going to have as well. And so you then look, for yourself with your history. You've put your body through some incredible things. You're a world-leading athlete. There's some stresses there that will be contributing to hormonal imbalance, even though exercise is incredibly healthy.
Yeah, so in other words, too much of anything is not good, isn't it? And with hormones, it's all about being in that Goldilocks middle range, isn't it? Not too high, not too low.
Exactly. It's looking for the nice balance, between, usually for women, progesterone and estrogen.
Progesterone. So just stepping back there to men's health a little bit there. Like I've been looking at my dad's health, for example. 78-year-old, very robust, still incredibly strong. But smoker. Should older males be looking at testosterone replacement therapy? It seems to be bandied about as this great elixir of life. And I know lots of men are considering it.
That's a good question, and it's a. Let's go back. I'll step back just a second, and see, men's systems is very basic. So I liken it to like a Toyota Hilux. It's a very basic hormonal system, a man's hormonal system, and so it's very hardy. And so it's like a Toyota Hilux. You don't generally get a lot of problems with it, and so that except for the engine blows up with no warning, which is a heart attack most often. And so for men, they don't often have to worry about their health as much as women because they've got a very hardy hormonal system, whereas a woman's system's more like a Formula One racing car.
Yeah,
it's incredible. Yeah, exactly. It's incredible what it can do, but it's really finely tuned, and it doesn't take much to put the tuning out. And so, regarding men and testosterone, I have no problem with supporting testosterone production. I'm not necessarily a fan of taking exogenous testosterone, in regards to taking straight testosterone, but supporting testosterone production naturally, which you can do a number of ways. Just making sure you've got adequate zinc is going to be key. But you don't want a lot of testosterone and then not have the liver's ability to clear it, because your body, just like in women clearing estrogen, and then you have estrogen metabolites which are actually worse than the estrogen. With testosterone, you have testosterone metabolites that are worse than the testosterone, and one of them is called a DHT form, and that's highly associated with prostate issues. And so you don't necessarily want a lot of testosterone if you're not able to clear it through the liver, because then you're probably going to likely run into prostate issues. So again, it's a balance.
It's a Goldilocks issue. Thing. Yep. Yeah,
it is. It's a balance issue, and making sure that the system. We're systems of systems. So at BPU, we take a very system approach, systems biology approach, where we look at it's not just one thing we're looking at here. We're not just looking at testosterone or just looking at prostate health. We're looking at the whole picture and kind of going, well, what's affecting what and why.
Yeah, I mean, because I have, like I said, I've been looking into that for Dad, and I know my brother and a number of other guys that have had their testosterone tested even in their 30s, and it's very low, which would be a result of our world and the stresses and all the rest of it. Yeah. And it does increase the prostate cancer risk, but it also acts as a neuroprotective agent, the testosterone, from what I understand. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I think it's just dependent on the form. If you've got the testosterone as a form, I think it's very protective and very beneficial.
Yeah.
But as that goes through the liver and gets metabolized, if your body can't metabolize it correctly through the liver, then you end up with this DHT form, which is then problematic. So, So it's just not as simple as taking more testosterone. And it's very, very common, Lisa. I've tested a lot of elite athletes. I've tested, a good number of All Blacks, and often they'll have low testosterone. And the reason they have low testosterone is because they've used it all. They train so hard that their bodies are struggling to keep up production.
So, that sort of brings us to the next thing then, adrenal issues. This is another very adrenal exhaustion. I went to my doctor a week or two ago and I said, I think I've got adrenal exhaustion, I've got this and that. She said, well, that's a load of rubbish. There is no such thing as adrenal exhaustion. What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, medically, and really it's just a reflection of the medical model. The medical model is either you're sick or not sick. And if you're not sick, then you're deemed to be healthy. So, we've got this huge spectrum of people who are healthy. But when I say healthy, their blood test for, say, an HbA1c may be 39, which means they're just a few donuts away from type 2 diabetes, but they will say you're healthy. That's not healthy. So, for us, we look at an optimal range. And so medically, when you look at the adrenal glands, you don't have Addison's disease, which is, an autoimmune disease of the adrenal glands. But are the adrenal glands working optimally? Are they fatigued? So where on the spectrum is the adrenal function? And so, so it's that
spectrum is that key word, isn't it? So when we get a lot of testing done normally with our local GPs, like we're being compared to sick people. In the ranges, so it's
exactly.
Good.
It just means you're not sick enough yet.
You're not dead yet, so
and therefore, if you haven't got a disease, you must be healthy by definition. And obviously, we know that that's not the case. We know that there's a spectrum of health and disease, and at one end you have optimal health and performance, and at the other end you have being dead. And so the goal is to be as close to the optimal health and performance as possible. And then obviously having a disease state is on the way to being dead. And so we're trying to get up the other end of that range as much as possible. And nothing against GPs, they're incredible. We've got a lot of good friends who are incredible GPs, work with a lot of GPs and specialists, but they're trained at the disease end of the spectrum, which is great because we need that, because a lot of people have that. But where we work is at the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, so you're all about prevention, education, not being the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff so much as being the one that sends the rope down to hold you, keep you up and pull you back
exactly.
up.
Ideally, we're standing at the top of the cliff going, don't go this way, turn around and go back that way.
and that's a harder sell, really, isn't it? Because it's only when you're in dire trouble and you're in donkey deep somehow, that you actually come, you search out people like yourself. Is that frustrating for you and your clinical team?
Yeah, it is. It is. I've kind of got used to it now, but even then, sometimes people don't realise. Some people can have heart attacks and they don't change their behaviour, which astounds me. But I often. This is going to sound really, really harsh, but often I feel that people haven't had enough pain yet. Yeah. And when they've actually had enough pain, then they're ready to change behaviour. Yeah. And I know that sounds really harsh, and my heart goes out to them, and I'd love to help them, but they don't want my help, and I can't help them. So So
I totally understand that. It's the same with coaching and with the hyperbaric oxygen clinic. You can have the best tools and you can have the best information in your own brain, and you can tell people and you can bring them to it, but it really needs a mindset change that has to happen within the individual in order for them to take those necessary steps, time and again. Exactly. You see, we've got a friend at the moment whose mum's sick with alcoholism, can't see that she's got that, complete denial of the situation. And so it's a really, I love working on mindset. I mean, this is my cup of tea, and trying to get people to understand themselves. I mean, I might try and understand myself, and what triggers change, and how do we change somebody's identity so that they then become this person who is willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's and I don't know what the formula is, and
I'm working on it.
You're an expert in this field from a personal level and also from a coaching level in regards to your coaching your athletes to run long distances. But it's as you know, it's a challenging aspect, isn't it?
It's a very challenging aspect. Well, let's carry on down the sort of list here. Inflammation, where inflammation's talked about a lot. The gut is the seat of your health, really, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is, yeah. And so, when you talk about inflammation, another way of saying inflammation is aches and pains. And so, we measure inflammatory markers a lot. So a C-reactive protein, it's an inflammatory marker released from your liver. It's a 10-day marker. So it basically tells you how much aches and pains you've had in the last 10 days. So inflammation is basically just collateral damage by your immune system for most part. It's a little bit of day-to-day wear and tear. But primarily it's collateral damage from your immune system. Mm-hmm. And then we know that 70 to 80% of your immune molecules are located in your digestive system around your gut. And therefore, our gut is really the key to controlling inflammation and eating foods that our body's not responding to as if those foods are an invader, whether it's a protein or, proteins, bacteria, viruses. And so, getting the gut working really well is an absolute key to controlling inflammation.
So let's talk about the connection between the gut and the brain, because that's that's something that I've been, once again, neurological issues and concerns, having optimal brain function and wanting your brain, your memory to be working fine. There's a real close connection there, isn't there?
There is, yeah. There's a number of the gut-brain axis now. There's a number of pathways through which the gut kind of talks to the brain from a physiological aspect. A lot of our neurotransmitters and precursors to our neurotransmitters, things like serotonin, is manufactured in our digestive system, manufactured in our gut. And so if you've got gut dysfunction from a neurotransmitter balance aspect, there's going to be problems as well. So, it's a very, very strong relationship now that they've established on a number of pathways, with this gut-brain axis.
So it's avoiding things like your gluten, your typical foods that cause intolerance. Run us through a list of things that. Okay, it's individual, and we're not talking to 100% of the people, but what do you generally see as the big inflammation foods? Number one would be gluten. Number one, hands down, would be gluten-containing foods. And the problem is, the bread we're eating now is nothing like the bread that our grandmother was eating. So due to the hybridization of grains, there's a lot more gluten in it, and then it's a concentration of a molecule called lectins, which cause a lot of leaky gut in people, and so the bread's just nothing like we're eating now. So first and foremost, my recommendation around gluten is if you have anything at all wrong with you, I'd recommend going gluten-free. And in fact, one study looked at whether gluten was safe for non-celiacs to eat. So celiacs, we know they have a very severe immune response. And they found that gluten elicited an inflammatory response on everybody. So literally everybody who eats gluten got more inflammation. And so, given that inflammation is indicated as kind of like a driving factor in many of today's modern diseases, we want to really try and control inflammation as much as possible within the body. So, gluten would be number one. And then really, moving away from sugar, it's not a direct one, but with sugar, it feeds the unfriendly bacteria in our guts. And we then start getting a bacterial imbalance within our digestive system, which really throws out our whole ecology and digestive system. And so, minimizing sugar. And then any food that you eat a lot of, dairy is quite common. It's a very difficult protein to break down, and most of the dairy we're consuming is heavily damaged because it's pasteurized, and so it's cooked, and so. There is quite a common intolerance that we see as well. See, because you get this conflicting information, cheese is good for the bones and milk's good for your bones and your heart, and you need calcium, and it's a little bit more complicated than that, isn't it? So some... It is, some like organic milk that hasn't been pasteurized, is that okay to eat or drink?
Yeah, for me... Yeah, well, certainly people tolerate it much better because the enzymes are still retained in it. So like the phosphatase to uptake the calcium, the lactase to break down the lactose, which is the milk sugar. So it's certainly much better tolerated. yeah. So, those sort of foods. So it comes back to quality. Very much comes back to quality.
So so dairy, gluten. Let's talk a little bit about lectins, because people probably don't know that word. Lectins are not only so these are often in plants, and these are parts of plants, aren't they? That often have. They don't want us to eat them, so the plants make the stuff that makes us sick, basically.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it's just a molecule that plants make to stop insects from eating them. And the trouble is the same mechanism that they break down kind of like cell junctures in insects, it affects us as well. And so, probably like cashews are quite high in lectins, but also like nightshade family, so that is problematic for a lot of people as well. And there's a number of reasons, whether it's the lectins or alkaloids, but this is going to be potatoes, peppers, aubergines, tomatoes. So
it's crazy, because these are foods that we think, they're at least healthy. I've got to eat my vegetables, my eggplants, my peppers, my potatoes. You'd think that would be good, but not necessarily so.
Yeah, exactly. It's very much dependent on the individual. I'll give you an example. This is my neighbour, 45 years old. He had bone on bone in his knee, and they wanted to do a knee replacement. He didn't want to get it done yet because he's only 45, and they said it would only last 7 years because of his job. Mm-hmm. And we were completely able to control his inflammation in regards to, he wasn't needing to take any medications for pain, which he was having to, by changing his diet, getting gluten out, and by getting nightshades out, and by just, giving him some high-strength omega-3 fish oils, which are naturally anti-inflammatory, giving him curcumin, which is a active ingredient from turmeric, which again is a COX-2 inhibitor, which is very anti-inflammatory, and we were able to control his inflammation naturally.
So this is, people are going to surgeons thinking my knee's stuffed, or my hips are stuffed, I've got osteoarthritis, I've got this, and this isn't necessarily, they may not need actual surgery. No. and this is not logical, is it? It's not the natural connection. We think, I've worn out my knee, I need to get it replaced.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing about it is that, when you look back 100, 200 years ago, we weren't necessarily wearing out our bodies. I know.
Totally, yeah.
The people are living longer. It's not that we're living older. It's just that more people, less people are dying young. So when you look at, the average longevity is that, a third of people were dying as
children
when they were born as children, and then another third of people were dying from infections. And then if you basically avoided those two, then you're expected to live into your 70s and 80s. And so with good health, and so we've been able to eliminate the first two for the most part. But so it dramatically skews the statistics to make it look like we're all living longer. It's not. We're not living longer.
Yeah.
So it's just that less people are dying younger, and so I don't believe that these things that people are experiencing are a normal part of aging. I believe that people should pretty much live with great health, and maybe just a couple of days of downtime when you're in your 90s. I'll give you an example of that. I met a farmer who was 96 years old a couple of years ago, and he was 96 years old. And when I met him, he was telling me his energy was getting better and his memory was getting better as he was getting older. At 96.
So what was he doing?
Across the street, and he was taking a lot of minerals. He was actually he was I don't recommend this. He was taking stock minerals. So he he'd been farming Romney sheep since 1936, and in the 1950s he discovered that when he gave his sheep zinc, that they did much better regarding facial eczema. So he was on one of the early adopters around that. Yeah. He started then supplementing himself, and he'd been experimenting on himself essentially for 50 years when I met him. And and like I say, 96 years old. I think he died at 102. I think he was still running his station at 100 as a farmer.
That's what we want, isn't it? Basically, to die healthy, like just at the very last days go down and not have
days downtime, or just we still hear. For many years I used to collect stories of people dying of old age because. You tend in the modern world, you tend to think that doesn't happen, but it still does. I just the other week I heard a story of some 95-year-old died in their sleep of great health.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with them. They just went to bed and didn't wake up.
Yeah, and that's the way we all want to go out. No, we instead of this terrible decline over a 30 or 40-year period where you've got all these aches and pains and horrible diseases and lifestyle diseases, diabetes, you name it, whatever is out there, heart attacks, all of those things can, to a large degree, be avoided if we can get ourselves together and get. And it is very hard. We've got depleted soils, we've got pesticides, we've got endocrine disruptors, we've got a stressful life.
You have to work very hard. You have to work hard because, let's face it, it's much easier just to go eat McDonald's or KFC.
Oh, totally. Cheaper too.
It's cheaper too, exactly. And so you have to really work at eating healthy. You have to, it's easier to sit on the couch and watch Netflix than it is to go for a run. Totally. But at the end of the day, we know the benefits of that run are huge.
Yeah, and this is, something I've always preached that, people always said, oh, you're going to, I've run 70,000 kilometres in the last 20-something years. You're going to wear your joints out, well, my joints are fine, I've probably done some damage to the kidneys.
But your body is rebuilding them constantly. And on that calcium front, calcium is a very easy mineral to get. So even if you're not eating any dairy products at all, if you're actually on a Paleolithic diet, which is like a caveman diet with vegetables and meat, research shows you get 1,800 milligrams of calcium. The optimal amount of calcium is 1,000 milligrams, so, above. But the vitamin D is the key. We've got to get vitamin D to absorb the calcium in the gut. And 84% of New Zealanders are below 18 nanomoles with vitamin D. So 84% of New Zealanders, as far as I'm concerned, are deficient in vitamin D. And so that's why, they're having bone issues is primarily not enough vitamin D, not enough vitamin K2, not enough boron. It's actually not a calcium issue.
Exactly. And you can take the wrong types of calcium, like calcium carbonate is virtually chalk, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's limestone.
And this is what you get prescribed from the doctor. I got this prescribed from my mum. And
right, because it's cheap. It's just, but it doesn't work very well.
It deposits in the wrong place, doesn't it? And vitamin D, what's the difference between vitamin D and vitamin D3? That's got me a little bit confused.
Okay, so D3 is the natural version. So you whenever you're supplementing, you just want to supplement with D3, vitamin D3. And so most supplements will, if you look at the back, they'll say what form it is, and it should say D3.
So you look for the D3. And vitamin D3 is a precursor to a hormone, or acts like a hormone in the body? Yeah,
it acts, yes. It's got a lot of hormone-like properties within your body, and pretty much, when you look at vitamin D, it's pretty much important for just about everything in your body. And so particularly when, hormone balance, every aspect of hormonal, regarding hormones from menstruation, PMS, hormonal issues, vitamin D, the research shows that vitamin D helps.
Wow, okay. So why are we vitamin D deficient in New Zealand? What's happening here?
It's a great question. Well, there's a number of reasons. First of all, we do make it from sun exposure, so but we only really make it between 11 and 3 in summer. So you need to be outside in summer between 11 and 3 without sunscreen to make it.
We're being told that's cancerous. That's cancerous.
Well, exactly. We're not doing that because we haven't got an ozone layer anymore. So or not much of one, and so you just can't do that because you get burnt. And so, some safe sun exposure is great, so literally 10, 15 minutes, depending on your skin. And then we should be getting vitamin D. It's a fat-soluble nutrient, so it's found in fat, so it's found in butter, it's found in cod liver oil, it's found in pork fat, lard. But a lot of people, aren't eating those natural fats so much anymore. As you know, I'm a huge fan of people eating natural fats. But people aren't eating these fats anymore. They're eating, a lot of packaged processed foods with
margarines and canola oil.
And synthetic fats in them. Yeah. Not getting the vitamin D from their diet.
So, I had this argument with another friend who's a nutritionist about, high levels of fat, because I'm a proponent of high levels of fat in your diet. The good fats, like your grass-fed butter, your coconut oils, and he was saying, some people react well to fat and some people don't, and it's not an elixir for everybody.
Right.
What is your take on that? And what types of fats? So obviously coconut oil.
Yeah. For me, if it's a natural undamaged fat, so high heat coconut oil or ghee. Medium heat, you're looking at olive oil, butter. Low heat, no heat, looking at flaxseed oil. And so avocado oil is going to be in the middle there too. For me, I tend to agree that it's that everybody requires different amounts of fats, and it's about eating right for you. And so if you eat fat, you get energy from it. That's fantastic. You should go ahead and do that. If you eat fat and you get tired from eating fats, these natural fats, then you're probably better off not eating so many of them, and you'll do better off with more complex carbohydrates. And so chances are there is a spectrum, and it's about trying to eat the right levels for you. And I talk a lot about that on my website for those who are interested. We've got
your macro.
Like that. Yeah.
So this is your testing for your metabolic type, isn't it? Whether you're a carb type or a mixed type or a protein type or fat type. Yeah. So people can go to Ben's website, which is bepure.co.nz, and take this test. I've also heard of other, listening to a podcast the other day, My DNA is a company in Australia that does testing for your foods. Yeah. And this is an exciting realm coming up. We're going to be able to test our DNA, and tell, without the questionnaires, and just go, hey, you are this type of person, you need to eat this way, or you need these types of medications, even in regards to...
So you're looking at the genetic side, yes, Lisa, So we do a huge amount of this. So we actually have a full-time geneticist here at BePure.
My gosh,
and so we do a massive amount of genetic interpretation, and it's an exciting field. So just from a macronutrient profile aspect, we can see if somebody's got low copies of a gene called the AMY1 gene, the AMY1 gene, they've got an 8-fold risk of being obese and getting type 2 diabetes from eating simple carbohydrates.
Wow.
And so so you can really start looking at your genetics and seeing what foods that you're suited to. You can look at your genetics and see where are the limitations within your genes, and then you can upregulate these enzymes to get better expression of your genes, which is a lot of fun.
So how does a client come to you and say, hey, I want to know all this? Where do they start? Sure. What's the process of coming to BePure?
We basically only work in programs because with nutrition, it's not a simple fix. It's a process. And so we have a 4-month program, 6-month program, and a 10-month program. So people can simply just choose which program is going to suit them and then come on in. And then it's just really a matter of sitting down with your clinician and chatting around what you want, and then, discussing, what is going to be the best strategy to get that for you.
And that's including your genetic testing and all of that sort of jazz you've got access to.
That. So obviously the more testing you do, the more expensive it is, unfortunately, at the moment. And so, it's just then looking at the resourcing and looking where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck.
Yeah, and this is the I think the frustrating thing even for coaches as well is knowing where to invest the person's money to get the best. It would be great if we were all millionaires and we could just have whatever we wanted.
Well, exactly. And it's still, it's in its infancy, this technology, and it's still fairly expensive. And, but it is beginning to come down the price curve, and it's becoming, to be more available and cheaper. And, it's an exciting time to be in the field.
Yeah, it is for sure. All right. So Ben, any other sort of things that you think that, or, you want people to know? I mean, you're doing this hormone tour coming up right through the country.
Sure.
Where can people find out about that, and what dates and so on?
Yeah, it's it starts at the end of the month, and best to go to bepure.co.nz. And really, when you start looking at the hormonal aspect, it's for anyone who has, PMS, anyone who's got fibroids and polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, menopausal issues, fertility issues, and anyone that wants to gain more energy or lose weight. Then it's going to be for them. So if anyone's listening and that sounds like you,
it sounds like
come along, and we're going to be at 25 towns or cities in New Zealand over the next 3 months, essentially. So really looking forward to helping people.
Oh, fantastic. Hey, look, Ben, thank you very much for taking so much time out of your very, very precious schedule.
So thanks for having me.
It's been great. I've had Ben on before, and hopefully we will watch him as his empire grows, because he's quite amazing what he's done with his empire and how much he's changing in the world. And my business partner and I watch Ben, and we admire him greatly, what he's doing.
Thanks,
so people,
Lisa. I just very grateful to be able to help people.
Oh, yeah, you're definitely doing that, mate. So thanks very much for your time today, Ben. People, go and check out bepure.co.nz. Get in touch with these guys. You can't lose. All righty. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I will